Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar about EHR Tutor and your psych course. My name is Lauren McNeil, and I'm on the marketing team here at F.A. Davis Company. And joining me today, we have Diane Yeager, who is from EHR Tutor, the founder and creator. So before we get started, I just have a few general announcements. Due to the amount of people that we have on the call today, everyone is placed on mute just to make sure you get the best audio quality. But if you have a question during the presentation or a comment, you can share those in the Q&A panel at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We'll be taking questions periodically and also have a Q&A session at the end. And at the end of the webinar, we're also going to have a survey. So this will just be a short 1 or 2 minute survey if you'd like to have a closer demo of EHR Tutor or you'd like to review one of our psych books. We can make sure we get all of that followed up with you at the end of the webinar. So let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. So we're really excited about our partnership with EHR Tutor and being able to finally provide you with an easy-to-use, customizable, and affordable electronic charting solution that can really be used to support learning in the classroom, in the sim lab, and also in clinical rotations. And the flexibility of EHR Tutor allows the program to easily integrate across the entire nursing curriculum to fit your needs, because it can work with really any F.A. Davis text, and it can complement one course or an entire nursing curriculum. However, today we're going to be focusing on how EHR Tutor can help you teach psych. So an overview of what we'll cover today. We're first going to hear from me, and I'll explain a little bit more about our psych textbooks and how they can be used in conjunction with EHR Tutor to enhance learning and create those real-world charting experiences for your students. And then we'll hear from Diane, who was a nursing instructor herself for many years, and then went on to develop EHR Tutor. She'll share a little background of EHR Tutor and then go on to guide a brief walkthrough to introduce and share a few examples of how EHR Tutor can be used to support the teaching from one of our psych textbooks to help bring that content to life. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit more about our psych textbooks. So before we jump in any further, I want to hear from you all. So use the chat box, the Q&A panel, or the chat box, and I want to know if you're currently using an EHR or covering documentation in your psych course. I'll take a pause here to let everyone get a chance to find the Q&A or the chat box, and just let us know if you are currently using an EHR or covering documentation in your psych course. I'll give you all a minute to respond. All right, so far I've seen a couple no's, 1 yes. So thank you for your responses. And it seems like for many of you, the connection between clinical simulations and an EHR is really natural. And you have your students using an EHR during the sim lab. So from the looks of these responses, we don't have as many instructors comfortable with using an EHR in the classroom, and that's what we want to talk about today. So with the right EHR, you can enhance your psych course and really give your students more exposure to patients with DSM diagnoses. It's a really great way to ramp up their virtual clinical experience, since we all know how tough it is to find clinical time. Now, let's talk about the books. So you already have exceptional patients in the case studies in your textbooks. And this is a way to make the didactic content more applicable to a clinical situation. You can take a patient a step further and bring the case study to life by going to, quote unquote, visit this patient in the hospital with your EHR. Students have done the assigned reading. So let's say you're using our brand new psychiatric mental health nursing textbook by Mary Townsend and Karen Morgan, and your students are reading chapter 24, schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. So within the chapter, students are going to be introduced to a patient in a case study with a sample care plan. And once your students have completed the reading and you are now in the classroom reviewing this content, you're able to pull up EHR Tutor and walk through one of the patient charts that's already in the program to illustrate points within the chapter case study. So you can pull up the patient's chart, you can take a look at the patient's summary, review the medical history and see what medication he's currently taking, and walk through the steps of the nursing process. Talk about his diagnosis of schizophrenia and what the nurse's role is, the interventions, and how a nurse would appropriately document this patient. So that example was from our RN level psych book, but the same concept applies at the LPN level. Our LPN text is Neeb's Fundamentals of Mental Health Nursing by Linda Gorman, and regardless of what DSM disorder you're covering, you can use EHR Tutor to take your students to the virtual hospital and visit a patient who fits in with that day's lesson. So as charting remains a big part of a nurse's job and it's more difficult to get students practice during clinical rotations because of HIPAA and site regulations, we're seeing more of a demand for academic EHRs, and students need that critical thinking process of documentation. So now I'm going to turn things over to Diane to talk about why she created EHR Tutor and to give us a walkthrough. But again, if you have any further questions about our textbook specifically, you can ask those in the Q&A panel or follow up in the survey. So Diane, I'm going to turn things over to you.
The founder of EHR Tutor, and EHR Tutor actually came around sort of out of necessity. I worked as an instructor for 15 years, and after that I started developing curriculum for 3 hospital systems who were beginning their implementations of the electronic health records. I developed curriculum, I did training, and during the training I'd have instructors come to my training sessions, and they would talk about how their students were no longer able to access the charts at the hospital many times. And from that, I just couldn't figure out, well, how do you tie everything together then for them to be able to transition out into the clinical world? And that does become a big issue. From that, that was the seed for EHR Tutor and where it came from. So here we are today, and I'm going to show you what we have. One thing nice about having an electronic health record in your core classroom or in your skills lab or sim lab is that charting is just a part of every nurse's work. Everything we do, we chart. It is a responsibility, and it is a responsibility that now we need to do in real time. Before, we could take our charts out and sit at the nurse's desk if we fell behind with our patient and our charting, and we could get the charting done, and really nobody knew where we charted or what time we actually did that charting from. Now that we have electronic health records, they have dual time stamps, and they are expecting people to be charting in real time. Even veteran nurses find this to be really difficult. And so by teaching students from the very beginning when they learn to be a nurse that charting is just something you do, just like you breathe, that it becomes a little bit easier for them to think about charting in real time and getting the workflow correct. So it's a great asset to have not only during your psych course, but once you have the students have this, all the instructors at the school have the ability to use it. You can use it in your skills lab. You can use it in your fundamentals classrooms, your med-surg classrooms. At any time, you can drop the students into the hospital basically virtually so that they can experience how they gather information in your storytelling. You know, we all tell stories in the classroom, and you can take them on a little virtual trip. And instead of telling them about the patient that you're talking about on a PowerPoint or by putting information on the whiteboard, you can actually open up a chart, which is the way a nurse gets information at the hospital. They never go to a whiteboard, and they never go and open up PowerPoints to look at a patient for information. So anyway, what I want to do right now is I want to take you on a little tour of a patient's chart just to see the various areas of the chart and how it looks and how it could function for you. Another spot that people tend to like EHR Tutor for is clinical. Very easy to grade, easy to put your information all into that area, do your care plan and any other information you collect during your clinical assignments. And so we'll see how you can grade something like that also in a few minutes. So right now, if you're seeing my screen, you're going to see that I am in a student view. This is what a student would see if they had a behavioral health course, and I had created that over to the side. And I actually am on my course, and I have an activity called charting. So I'm going to go to my charting activity. If I had instructions, they would appear right here above where it says patient. And my patient or patients that have been connected to this activity would be found down below. So sort of like a patient list. So I'm going to open May Wynn's chart. May Wynn is one of the F.A. Davis patients. There actually is a Wynn family that is in the system so that you can sort of take care of the whole family over the semester if you desire to do that. This is her chart. You'll see we have a header, basic header, just like you see in most electronic health records out in the real world. You'll see that we're in her inpatient chart, and down the left-hand side are all the tabs. These are exactly like the paper chart tabs that you see from a long time ago. Those of us who are old enough to be charting, coming from the paper world, you just go behind the different tabs and do your charting. So the thought process is sort of the same for people who really are not computer people and don't love working on the computer. You can kind of have an analogy to that. Patient summary is the first tab that is open, and you'll see we have that here. We can see that this patient has a CVA, she has pneumonia. You can give your patients any principal problems. You can build your own patients. You can take a patient that we have built or F.A. Davis has built, and you can make a copy and tweak them. So if you wanted to give this patient here, maybe she's a medical patient who has a psych issue, you could add a psych issue to her and still use all the information that was built on her. So anyway, so this patient you can see has had several sets of vital signs. Patient summary is a report. It's a good place to start giving report to another nurse or to be able to find information about the patient. You'll see that this patient was built with a complete set of admission orders, and you'll see as we drop down that it is a complete set of admission orders when she came in. You'll see all of her meds that were ordered are here. We can even see which ones have been given up to this point. She even has some labs that were drawn a little bit earlier today. I want you to notice these times up here. You'll notice that it looks like these labs were taken yesterday. You'll notice that we also have labs that were taken a little bit earlier today. In fact, really just about the time. I'm in the Eastern time zone, so that's what this time is telling me, is that just a couple minutes ago somebody did vital signs. Over on the left-hand side, let's just take a peek at a few of these areas. One of them is results. We already saw that lab results show on the patient summary. I want to take you to imaging and diagnostic tests. This is kind of a cool feature, and this patient is built very nicely. You'll see that when they built this patient, they added not only the findings from a CAT scan and from her chest x-ray, but you can also add pictures to images to the results so that you can go back to look at those. We have imaging and diagnostic study results that you can add images to. I'm going to take you down to the notes area and see that students can write notes in either narrative form or you can use the flow sheets, which I'll show you in a few minutes. You'll see that in order to read any of the notes, you just click on the plus sign and you'll see this history and physical was written yesterday by this physician. And if in order to read any of the notes, you just click the plus sign. Okay. All right, so now if a student wants to write a note, all you have to do is click on the new note. And when you do, the students can type. You'll see that the note type can be written if an instructor were building a chart or if you were doing an interprofessional experience. We have various roles, even though it is going to default to nursing. If you were building a chart in the patient chart library that you wanted to present to your students, you could actually build notes from all different areas of the hospital. So you could build a very rich chart. Okay, when the students are done charting, we can click the sign button and we'll see that our note appears here. And if we want to go back and read it, we can use the plus sign. Students can write as many notes as they need to. We have our flow sheets. You're going to see that we have all the workflows in our flow sheet, so that you would be doing in a simulation. Again, remember, this isn't usually bought for just one course. You can use it across curriculum. And so if we wanted to go down and we wanted to look at our vital signs, and we wanted to add vital signs, all the flow sheets work exactly the same. Notice you can see a little trend here. If you were talking about this patient, you could talk about some of her issues related to these vital signs that you can see are all over the place. If the students take a set of vital signs, they can click on the new entry. When they do, they'll see the most current entry over to the left-hand side. And to go ahead and chart, all they would need to do, if my temperature was 100.1, I can put this in here, choose my scale that I'm using. Then they could go down and finish their vital signs. Once you're done on any of the flow sheets, you click the submit button, and it automatically adds your information with your initials and the current date and time that are there. Students can edit what they write, but they cannot edit what somebody else writes. On this page, we do have vital sign graphs that you can look at. We graph all the vital signs, looking for trends. To close it, you just click the button. Let's go to the assessment. Now, this is our head-to-toe assessment. We actually have two assessments that you would be interested in. One is behavioral health, and the other is the assessment for just head-to-toe. You'll see this patient has 3 sets of assessments that have been done. This includes a Glasgow Coma scale, Braden scale, and fall scale. At the bottom is a pain evaluation. To chart, again, remember, it's just the new entry button, and then they can go through and do their charting. I do want to show you at the bottom here, we also have a behavioral health assessment flow sheet. I'll open this for you, and you'll see we have our risk status here, mental status. Trying to go a little slower here since this is kind of your focus. Sleep patterns. Notice everything has comments. So what is not in the drop-down boxes, there is always a place to chart all the information that you need to add other than that. Safety, it talks about the family and visitors. And then we have our area that we can do our behavioral note down here. So anything that wasn't addressed up above, we can put here, and all of the behavioral health information then can be held in one spot rather than having to go back to the narrative note area. So anyway, that's how that works. The next thing I want to show you, and people really like this, we have a MAR. The MAR allows you to do barcode scanning. You'll notice that this MAR looks a lot like a paper MAR. So for people who, again, are not really into wanting to be a computerized person right now, it works sort of the same. If you have the barcode scanner now, to barcode this is as easy as scanning the patient's armband and scanning the meds, which are included in the patient chart when you create it, and being able to just document. It feels just like you're at the hospital. It's very cool. This is one of the things people really, really, really like, is to be able to come in, look at meds, talk about the meds, and then be able to go through and give those meds also. We have the ability to do patient education. Our patient education is quite good. Gives you the ability to do full-blown patient education with your evaluation of the patient's learning and all of those. We have a care plan. People who do clinical love to use the care plan for that. This care plan has already been created for this patient. You also have the ability to, in the care plan, not only have the 5 steps to the nursing process, the box gets as big as it needs to be, but you also have additional information box that's down here. This would be for any reflections, journaling, questions and answers, whatever you collect now from the students. We've tried to give you a place that you can put that over into the electronic health record. Okay, I've kind of shown you the chart now. What I want to do real quick is I'm going to take you over to the instructor view, and I want you to see how to grade. To grade, I'm going to go to the course list. This is where all of the courses that I teach would be found. Once I see the courses, they would be in a list on the table here. And if I want to grade something, I have to click Go to Course. When I click Go to Course, this is that activity I created. If I had 5 activities, they would all be listed here. I can see that one student has opened this chart already and begun looking at it. And over here, I can go and I can do my grading. If I click on Grading Chart, I'll see that only one, this is the one student who has opened this. They would have a table of people who had done this. She last updated this at this time. And I'm going to click on View and Grade Charting. When I do, this is the exact chart that I was just in. The name of the student is found up at the top. You'll see every place that that student charted is in yellow. When I open the area to do the grading, you'll see that even the places on that tab are in yellow where they charted. People said that when we developed this grading, that they were able to go through and save about 25 to 50% of their time that they use on grading because it really walked them through. They didn't have to go looking for the student's information, even if they charted in the wrong spot. So grading is very easy. People really like this for clinicals and homework assignments. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take you and just show you the patient chart library. We have over 65 of the patients that F.A. Davis has added. Many of them are in with the simulation book. The simulation book, if you've not come to one of the presentations on that, does have psych scenarios in it, and there are patients that are already built to those. So there are over 65 F.A. Davis patients in here, and we also have over 90 patients total with all the ones from EHR Tutor. So you can either use the patients that are here, or you can create your own from scratch, or you can tweak the ones that we have by making copies of them. F.A. Davis has also created about 300 activities to match their patients. Each one of their patients comes with 5 activities, each one representing a different part of the nursing process. So anyway, well, I think I've pretty much given you a good overview of what EHR Tutor has to offer you. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pass this back over to Lauren. So let me go ahead and do that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Diane. That was a really incredible overview. And again, like we said, if you're looking for a more one-on-one demo, we can set you up with that as well. I saw one question come in, and that was about whether you can use EHR Tutor in an RN and an LPN program. If you want to speak to that, Diane.
Yes, any program you really teach. We even have people who teach like social work and things like that using it. It's a chart, and so that's the big thing. It's a chart. It works like a chart. It reads like a chart, and anything that you would do related to charting and interacting with the chart or gleaning information out of the chart. So for even CNAs, we have some CNA programs that use this. We have master's degrees and PA programs that use this. So all across.
All right, perfect, Diane. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, we also have psychiatric mental health texts that work with RN as well as LPN programs. We have 2 options for the RN level, the Essentials of Psychiatric Mental Health Nursing and Psychiatric Mental Health Nursing. And then for the LPN level, we have NEEBS Fundamentals of Mental Health Nursing. So thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. In just a few moments, our survey will appear, and that's where you can share any feedback. If you have additional questions following the event, you can ask those there. If you'd like to review one of our books for adoption, we can make sure to get you a complimentary copy of that. Or if you'd like to see a closer look of EHR Tutor, we can set you up with that as well. So again, thanks so much for joining us. We have an email on the screen. There we go. We have an email on the screen now, ehr@fadavis.com, if you have any further questions. But thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.